Welcome to the Social Standard podcast. I am super excited for our guest today. It's Caroline Pay, and she is the Chief Creative Officer of Headspace, which is a leading meditation app. And I'm actually a user of Headspace. And a kind of a funny little story here is that back in the day, like 7 years ago, when I started the Social Standard, I actually started using Headspace then. So it was kind of an interesting time, right? Whenever you're doing a startup, it's a stressful situation. And so I would sit on my couch and just do a little meditation every afternoon to kind of wind down from the morning, get focused in for the afternoon. And it was awesome. So I had done that for a while there. And then Caroline, we were talking before, but I just moved to Nashville and haven't really found like the meditation yoga studio here. And so Headspace has been a huge tool for me in the last couple of months. I've really enjoyed seeing what strides you guys have made from when I first started to now, and all the content that's available. It's really incredible. So we'll get into all that in a little bit, but first, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jess. It's lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. And I think you actually have a pretty interesting story with how you came to Headspace. So would you mind telling our audience a little bit about how that came to fruition?
Sure. I spent like my whole career working in advertising in London, and I was having a lovely time. You know, I worked at great agencies, and I was actually helping run an agency called Grey London. I was co-chief creative officer with one of my favourite humans, a lady called Vicky Maguire. So all was good. And then I went to California on holiday with my son to Disneyland, and I had a 45-minute window where I could have a sandwich with Rich Pearson. And Rich Pearson is one of the co-founders of Headspace and also an old friend of mine from kind of early 2000s. And we'd crossed over at an agency. We'd actually then both left the agency and just started working together directly with clients. And we just remained very, very good friends. And I'd always kind of had a connection with Headspace and fed him my opinion or fed him talent over the years, but I'd never directly worked at Headspace. So at this moment in time, you know, Headspace was 10 years old, and Rich turned around and said, right, it's time. We need a creative leader. You're the only person in the world I trust with the brand, and you need to start a new chapter in your life. Because he was, you know, as I say, he was he was a close friend, and he knew that I had recently separated from my husband and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, no, Rich, I can't. I love my job. Me and Buddy, which is my son, have got a nice rhythm in life. You know, I'm content. And he was like, yeah, you're not happy with content. You need to be scared all the time. So to cut a very, very, very long story short, I wrote down what I thought my life was going to turn out like, and then what this might make my life turn out like. And it wasn't even a decision. It was like, okay, that's what's happening. So once I'd got support from my son's dad for us to move to California, you know, within 2 months we were living in Venice, and I was working at Headspace.
Wow. There's so much to unpack there.
I know. It should be like the Ridiculous Life Changes podcast, maybe.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's very inspirational. It's so interesting. And I don't know if it's because you are such a creative person or this is just how you think, but a lot of people say when you're trying to make a decision, you write down the pros and the cons and sort of all that.
Yeah, I never think things through, Jess. And if I did, I don't think I would do anything. So I kind of avoid being very worrisome or overthinking anything. Sure. And I would say that I've kind of built my career on my gut, you know, a physical feeling and a physical excitement about things. And I think because Buddy was involved, it was a huge life change for us. I needed to write down the story to make sure that it had a chance, you know, to potentially have a happy ending, I suppose. And it was an opportunity. It wasn't really a decision. It was just like a once in a lifetime opportunity to change our lives. And so I did it, and I didn't really think it through past typing in that Google Doc on the plane while he slept next to me.
Wow. I mean, That's a very that I feel like you have a TED talk right in that, right?
Never
Big
think,
life
never
decisions.
think things through. Just do it.
Just do it. I mean, spoken like a true creative, right? If creative
Well,
people
I mean,
thought
I'm
things
very
through too
lucky
much,
to. Yeah, I think you have to have that kind of physical reaction to stuff. You know,
yeah.
it always, when I was back in agencies, I would have a physical reaction when me and my partner or my team landed on a good idea. You would see me running around the agency with a piece of paper trying to share the excitement I was feeling. And that's,
Wow.
you know, that's the best feeling in the world, where it's not a rational decision anymore. It's like
Right.
you know.
Absolutely. That's so cool. Yeah. I'm thinking, what do I need to do? Maybe I should open a Google Doc and see what happens. Right.
Honest, I mean, I'd never heard of it before, and I've never done it since, and I've never even looked at the document. I promise you, I haven't.
Wow.
And I often think, well, maybe I should look at what it said, but in a way, I
Right.
quite like just to keep it in that moment. And it was definitely a crossroads moment, I guess.
Well, I mean, that to me just signals that you were meant to work at Headspace in a lot of ways, right? Because you can't
Yeah.
achieve that level of clarity in thinking and sort of the attachment to your gut instinct without having some sort of like mindfulness in your life, right?
Yeah, I think you do have to have a strength of mind and a clarity of thought, for sure. I mean, what I missed out on when I was telling my story is that I was really lucky to be working with Rich when he met Andy. So I
Mm,
was like this weird observer to the whole thing, all of the decisions. The first event that we ever did in London, I was really lucky to be a part of that. So I've definitely had Headspace in my life for as long as Headspace has been around. Therefore, I've benefited from Headspace and evolved my practice and the ways I could get Headspace as the brand has.
super cool. That's awesome. Wow. Well, I'm on board. I'm on board with the way you think about
Mhm.
things. So
Yes.
it's interesting timing too,
Me
because we're
too.
actually we're looking to hire a creative strategist.
Mm,
And so just hearing you think through some of these things, it's like, okay, now I think I have a better vision of what we need on our team. So
good. Oh,
a
that's
lot of
nice.
good learning for me personally as a leader. So I
Good.
appreciate it. And you know, the interesting thing too is Headspace has been on, you know, I kind of alluded to this early, but a very large journey itself, right? I
You
mean,
really have.
even starting, you know, figuring out that the app was the right way to now when I look at it, you know, I was doing my research to kind of understand where you guys are at now. And you're not just an app, right? You're really
Mm.
this media property and this resource for everything tied to meditation and mindfulness. And I hope I'm
Yes.
not butchering that.
No, it's beautifully put. I think, you know, it's really interesting. When the boys started Headspace, they thought it was just going to be an events platform.
Hmm.
And it soon became really clear that Andy, you couldn't scale Andy. You could, you know, one man couldn't speak to all of the thousands of people that we needed to speak to at the time. And also, people needed Headspace post the event. They couldn't just
Hmm.
come, experience Andy live, and then walk away and be fully Headspaced up for the rest of their days, you know.
Right.
So, you know, making it an app was a really brave and risky move, because back then apps just weren't a thing.
Sure.
So we were one of them, you know, we were the first meditation app for sure, but also no one was really sure if apps were going to take off. So it was a
Mhm.
real gamble. Everyone thought they were crazy, but, you know, 70 million downloads later, they
Yeah.
might just be onto something, you know.
Right.
So that was the first shift. And then really since I joined, so I joined nearly 3 years ago.
Okay.
And even when I joined nearly 3 years ago, we were still eyes closed, guided meditation with Andy.
Hmm.
Yes, there were some guided runs in the Nike running app, and we'd done lots of really interesting partnerships. So we kind of flirted with different ways to get Headspace, but it was
Sure.
still majority eyes closed guided meditation with Andy. And now, you know, we cut to today. It's Andy, it's Eve, it's Dora, it's Kasonga, it's Sam. It's a podcast. It's still eyes closed guided meditation. It's mindful eating. It's move mode. It's focus music. It's sleepcasts. And then outside of the app, you know, obviously the Netflix TV show
Hmm.
is a hugely exciting way for people to get some headspace as well. So
Yeah.
it's just exploded across so many different channels. And that was always something that we had discussed and dreamed of, is how might you have a mindful blanket across your everyday,
Hmm.
that Headspace can be there for, you know, maybe you watch the wake up when you're still in bed, and
Yeah.
you listen to some commute content on the way to work, and then you maybe do the mindful eating course before lunch, or you go for a mindful run after work and you listen to a sleepcast, and just having this kind of companion throughout your day to help you live more mindfully, rather than just being boxed in this eyes closed guided meditation moment, which, by the way, is also a phenomenal way to get headspace still. But we just needed to expand and flex and be where our members were and our should be
Mhm.
members are.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, it's really developed into a lifestyle, right?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I'm just really proud of how we have evolved.
Hmm.
But we've only just started, that's the from where I'm sitting, I'm like, oh my God, you just wait and see what's coming around the corner.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, really exciting.
Very cool. Well, it's interesting because when we bring on our brand partners, right, it's to do the influencer marketing side of things. That's usually where we start with them. And that's great. But where we tend to evolve with a lot of our brand partners is to try to get them to become storytellers, be a brand voice on social, be an influencer yourself in your space, right? And
Mm,
that comes through a lot of different ways, like branded partnerships, influencer marketing, getting a personality to your brand, right?
mm.
And you guys have just done such a good job of that. I think naturally, and I'm sure some of that's through your guidance and some other people on your team, and it's really incredible to see. I know, this doesn't sit necessarily within your division of the company, but just as an influencer marketing company, we look at some of the partnerships that you guys have done with the NBA, right? Or League of Legends, or even the hiring of, John Legend for the chief music officer, which I think is like the grooviest title ever. You guys have done so much, and it's not just, I'm paying someone to say, hey, go check out Headspace, right?
Mm.
These partnerships are really involved, they're deep, and they're very authentic. So from
Yeah.
where we sit, we applaud you guys in the way that you sort of speak to your audience, meet them where they're at, and partner up with people, right? And brands to do very cool
Yeah,
things.
I think, authenticity has always been so crucial to the success of Headspace, to keep that consistent authenticity born from Andy
Yeah.
and his practice, but also then when we do connect with people or influencers or brands, what's the truth about that relationship, right? NBA is such a great example because
Yeah.
the head of the NBA is a huge Headspace fan and a huge Andy fan. So that started from that relationship. And then we realized that a lot of coaches were using it, a lot of the players were
Hmm.
using it. And that is a really rich and, it's a tentacly relationship in terms of the way that we work together. And then obviously the performance content that we have in the app through the NBA. And yeah, just so many ways that relationship felt very real. It was like a
Hmm.
bulletproof relationship. It wasn't just like, oh, I know, let's just give the NBA some cash and see if
Right.
we can look sporty. You know what I mean?
Right.
Another one, Starbucks is such a lovely partnership because that
Hmm.
came from Starbucks. I even think it was one of the internal support groups had all realized that they either used Headspace or wanted or were recommending Headspace, and now Headspace is available for free to every single employee of Starbucks.
That's amazing.
um, and now in the Starbucks app, there is a carousel of all sorts of Headspace content that you can benefit from while you're waiting for your coffee. So
Hmm.
it's, I love when our relationships are multi-layered, and even with John Legend. I mean, I wish I sat around a table with John Legend every day. I
Right.
definitely don't. But he has taken on the responsibility to ensure that all of our kind of musical ambassadors, or anyone that creates focus music or a playlist, he really, really believes in the mission. And so he's super, super thoughtful and selective about the music and the people that we work with. So,
Yeah.
we had an all hands with him, like a fireside chat with him, and it was just goodness.
I can imagine. I would have loved to have been part of that. That sounds very cool. And I think it's so interesting too, because you can't see meditation, right? You
No.
can't really see mindfulness. You can certainly feel it when you get there,
Mm,
but when you start, it's a bit of a journey to kind of get there.
mm,
And I love what you guys have done. These partnerships sort of carve out times of day for you to do it, like the Starbucks one, right? Or even if you're
yeah.
going on a coffee walk, I know you guys have a meditation for your morning coffee walk. So
Yeah.
that fits in organically. But then, music and movement and focus and all of these things are they're so important, because I know for me, when I first started getting into it, what I realized was working out was my moving meditation, right?
Mm,
Sitting still was really not in my wheelhouse at that moment.
mm,
And so being able to have somebody, an app, a business meet you where you are
yeah.
is so important.
Yeah.
And then, it's
And I
obviously
and I would say it's interesting. I agree you can't see meditation,
right.
but you can see it
Okay.
when you're with the people who have been practicing, and all of a
Yes.
sudden they're less aggressive, or they're better rested, or they're more focused, or they're more empathetic. Like, I see it in myself. My reaction behavior is so different now, and I'm so
Hmm.
much more resilient. And I bounce, and like when I get bad news, or when something really radically changes, I can go, okay, all right, we'll just deal with it differently, rather than totally freaking out, falling on the floor, and being the dramatic advertising creative that I was for so many years. So it's interesting, because I agree with you totally. Like, there isn't this immediate tangible effect of meditation and mindfulness, but in yourself, after a while, it's like, okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
real.
totally. The feeling of that calmness and the being
Mm,
present, I think, is so
mm,
so big, right? As you're
mm.
saying that, I'm thinking, geez, I really like my toddler meditating.
Well,
But
there's so much kids content in there,
there
and
is,
obviously we have
yeah,
another really great partnership is with
Sesame
Sesame
Street, right?
Street. So we have the monster meditations, we have all sorts of exciting new content in different forms coming out with Sesame Street really soon. So keep an eye out for that as well,
How
and
cool.
share that with your kids, because it's just beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love. And well, it's so important. I actually see some. I've seen influencers meditating with their kids, and I thought, let me try this. So, because usually I do that sort of stuff on my own. That's my me time,
Mm.
right? But I think, well, geez, you got to extend this to your, to your family, to your
To your
kids, so they see
family, and
you
make
doing
it a
this.
family routine. So you
Exactly.
can say, Alexa, give me some headspace when you're around the
Yeah.
dinner table, and she will. Or I remember trying to carve out time. This is before I worked at Headspace, and I would
Okay.
want 20 minutes in the morning to meditate, and my son at that time was 5 or 6. He didn't give a shit whether I was meditating or not. He wanted to come and talk to me.
Okay.
Whereas if I'd have invited him into that space, and he'd laid down with me, we would have both benefited from it.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my 1-year-old will get one of my yoga blocks and she will sit on it and she will put her hands together and
Oh, stop
namaste and
it.
then she will breathe and it's the best. I'm like, please continue
Yeah.
this. This is so perfect. That's yeah. It's interesting how it just has such an impact across so many facets of your life, right? It's not this pigeonhole thing. And I think you guys have done such a good job of showing people the path, right? I mean, most people I think want to get involved in some sort of mental clarity, health journey, especially in the last year and a half, right?
Yeah.
So I think you guys have done a great job of laying that out. And I love all the partnerships that you guys do. I think that's so smart. It is, I mean, it's a benefit. We see this a lot that when you are a cool brand, you become an influencer and other
Mm.
brands want to partner with you to show that they're cool too, right?
Yeah, I think it is interesting. Even one of the reasons I joined Headspace was the opportunity with our brand partnerships, because it's
Yeah.
so exciting to me. And
Me too.
I always like to think about them bespoke per partnership, and always encourage the team to do the same. But I think that we were partnering with some like-minded brands
Mhm.
earlier on in our journey, and now it's much more around how might we meet new audiences, or get
Yes.
much more scale with our partnerships, because I'm a mainstream girl. There
Sure.
is no highbrow with me. I want to be in everyone's pocket.
Yeah.
So the more that we can, the more different people that we can talk to in a meaningful way, the better. And partnerships, in my opinion, are the quickest way to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I could not agree more. And I mean, even the BBC partnership that you guys did is my
Oh,
exactly. That's just how it makes you feel, right? It's
yeah,
right? It's just
yeah,
like,
complete dream. I mean, and they contacted us and they said, we have this incredible library of sounds. Would you like to, do something
gotcha.
together? And they had incredible footage, and I think we only just scratched the surface of that
Oh,
opportunity, if I'm honest.
absolutely. I think and they were a former client for you when you were at BBH London,
Oh,
right?
oh, yeah, that was the grandest pitch of my life. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but we did win the Strictly project. So I did have the whole agency doing a dance routine.
I mean, what an epic client to have, right? And to be able to
The
partner with
best.
them is, yeah,
Yeah, the
it's very cool.
best.
That content is some of my favorite content, I think, on the
Mm.
app. So, and for our listeners, if you haven't checked it out, you've got to see it. I mean, I think my favorite is probably the baby sea turtles
Yeah,
hatching and
exactly.
moving to the ocean. It's so precious.
So cute.
And it does
It's
make
so
you just
cute.
feel so good. And I think you're totally right to say, hey, like, how do you become mainstream? How do you hit new audiences? That's that should be something that all brands are thinking about forever,
Mm,
right?
mm,
One of the things that I really thought was interesting that you guys did was you participated in the Snapchat minis, right?
yeah.
And that was super cool. And so for those who are listening who don't know what that is, it's basically Headspace was able to be one of the partners that put like a mini Headspace app in Snapchat, and then you were able to meditate with your friends and kind of send like checkpoints in to say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? My favorite was the vibe check. I think that was
Yeah. Oh,
so
me
spot on
too.
for like Gen Z, and just
Yeah,
their whole
exactly.
movement. So what did you guys get from that partnership in terms of like learning, and how did the Gen Z audience respond to that?
Yeah, the Snapchat partnership was one of my favorite experiences at Headspace so far. And I worked really closely with Alice, who is our head of social impact. And
Okay.
we started talking with Snapchat about all the different ways that we could work together. And it was about the time when their minis were just starting out, but it was all games in the minis then.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like smash an egg or throw a pizza or whatever they were, like these crazy popular games that kids could basically bring into their chat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we're like, okay, how might young people invite Headspace into their chat? Like, how can, rather than just forcing ourselves into their chat, how can we be useful? So they were running this global study of kind of the state of mental health with young
Mm-hmm.
people. And we learned so much from that. Pretty upsetting, to be honest, about the
Of
state of
course.
mental health with young people. But it was really good for us to understand how young people talk about their mental health, who they talk to, what they're looking for from authority figures versus friends versus brands. And it really was all about friends, which is perfect, Snapchat.
Yep.
So we made this kind of light version of Headspace. We changed language, we changed animation, and 5 million Snapchatters used it in the first month.
Wow. Wow.
So in
That's
4
pretty
weeks, I mean,
incredible.
it's just amazing. And it gave us great signal that not only were they wanting to look after their mental health, but they were open to Headspace being the people that could help them do it. Not only look after their own mental health, but actually in that environment, it's just as important for them to be able to say, hey, friend, I did this meditation, try this, or have you tried Headspace, for it to be a recommend as well as something for their own personal use. So yeah, Snapchat, very close to my heart.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible that I think especially a lot of brands are sort of nervous about Gen Z, right? And how they're going to be accepted or not. But I think they're
Mm.
actually an incredible group of individuals because they welcome brands into their space when it helps them increase their life, right? In
Well,
some
that's the
some
thing,
capacity.
like we could add value to their conversations. Like
Yes,
they're having really meaningful and important conversations with their friends. And
absolutely.
if we can bring in a toolkit that can help them help their friends, then we know our place. And we do it in a Headspace way, so which means it's super simple, it's actually quite light, it looks cool.
Hmm.
It's not this weirdo meditation brand coming in. It's like, oh yeah,
Right.
Headspace, like the brand awareness within Gen Z is actually higher than the general population, which I was surprised about. So we were definitely accepted or welcomed into those conversations, which is, it's actually a relief,
Yeah,
that we can be helpful.
that's awesome. It's really cool. And I would assume I did check out your TikTok page as well, because everyone's got to be on TikTok now, right? You guys are doing really well. In fact, I mean, you're building a nice size following, and I saw you had a video that got over 1 million views, which is, that's a viral state
Yeah,
on
it's
TikTok,
amazing. And
right?
we got invited to join their wellness hub, which obviously is a huge
Amazing.
step up as a brand. But yeah, as I say, the signals from Snap were super encouraging. So
Hmm.
yes to TikTok
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. I mean, TikTok is just it, it's a fun space, and I think I noticed the way that you guys are sort of interacting with your audience there. But when you think about social media, and I don't mean to, penalize TikTok here, but since they're kind of the soup du jour,
Mhm.
you have this sort of just constant scrolling, right? There's no end point
Mm.
with social media, but just to focus on TikTok, that can be I think that's one of the reasons why young people have so much mental health issue anxiety, right? So how do you think about Headspace's place on apps that maybe are part of the problem?
Yeah.
And I say that fully knowing what I do for a living, right? But how do you approach a space like that to be true to the brand and
Yeah.
really kind of navigate those waters?
I think we have a role or a responsibility to remind people that sometimes they do need to put down their phone
Hmm.
or do a breathing exercise. Like some of our most popular content is just a really simple breathing exercise, like box breathing. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out
Sure.
for 4.
Hmm.
That's one of our most popular Instagram posts, so I think that there is an opportunity as a brand and a responsibility as a brand to give people a little bit of headspace, give them a
Hmm.
break,
Yeah.
remind them of healthy habits and routines that they can incorporate into their day.
Absolutely. And it's nice. I know on my feed when I'm scrolling and I see Headspace content come up, it's different than the other content that I'm
Yeah.
consuming. And it sort of
Mm.
does remind you to pause.
Yeah, and I regularly check in with the social team to ensure that we're staying true to
Hmm.
being super duper simple, bringing a bit of joy, not falling into kind of the generic lifestyle photography trap that will just make us like everybody else. Like
Yep.
there's, sometimes a Headspace orange square with a closed eye smile is one of our most engaged posts.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
gives you a sign that actually people just want a little bit of a break sometimes,
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's
And mindful moments, another thing, like they are just those little quotes from Andy or other teachers that people just love to snap and share.
mhm,
And again, just take that on board when they're
absolutely.
crazy, like scrolling. It's like,
I know, right? I know I've shared it for doing a few mindful moments in the morning. I usually like to share the quotes out too because they're so nice and it really sort of just centers you for the day. So,
yeah, of course. Yeah,
um,
sometimes I just get so emotional sometimes, and I like, because that means I can feed back directly to my team
yeah.
through Instagram. I'm like, oh my God, I love this one.
I know, but that's how everyone communicates these days.
Yeah.
And thinking sort of about like your team and communicating, one of the things I did want to chat with you about is I noticed like our company for sure. I know a lot of other brands. It's like you sort of start to in these days here, you sort of start to struggle creatively
Mm,
um, when you're not around your team constantly and having
mm,
that build, right? So
mm.
when you guys are thinking about how to continue to create, how do you continue to push Headspace forward into other avenues? Like, how are you interacting with your team to sort of continue to draw that creativity out and really energize them?
Yeah, I mean, oh, it's so hard.
It is.
I miss the office and I miss the team so
Hmm.
much. I mean, I'm on back-to-back Zooms from well, I was when I was living in LA on
Yeah.
back-to-back Zooms all day. Now it's just in the afternoons, but it's just bringing my A game to every single face-to-face that I have and making sure that I'm super prepared and that have really um, I have really good positive expectations of the team as well, so
Uh-huh.
that they feel encouraged and they feel confident that in the time that we've got together, we're going to come up with something great. So it's
Sure.
just about, even though we're behind a screen, it's about the energy that I bring, hopefully draws out the right energy from them.
Sure. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm thinking about a project me and one of my brand designers did last week. We had no time. It was a quite complex opportunity, but we both came at it like, right, this is going to be something great, because we
Hmm.
carved out the time to think and write, and he carved out some time to design, and something that might have taken us 3 weeks in the real world, actually we just turned it around in a couple of days. And
Wow.
because we were over communicating and we were over prepared and we were
Sure.
super duper clear on what we had to do, so I guess that's good discipline that we've learned in this environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, discipline is key to
Oh
success in
yeah.
most areas, right? But
Mm.
easier said than done for sure. So
Yeah, hell yeah.
yeah, right. Well, thinking about how um you guys have done so much in such what feels like a short amount of time. How do you guys think about what's next? I mean, you've done athletes, you've done mindful parenting, you've done kind of anxiety and the COVID time frame. What's next for Headspace?
Yeah. I mean, well, right now we are knee deep in sleep. Like we could, I
Hmm.
can't, I honestly can't see past sleep because it's huge. Sleep was really hot for us before COVID.
Sure.
And then as COVID hit, I think all of the stress and anxiety, unknownness, strangeness caused people not to be able to sleep, or worse, wake up in the night and not get back to sleep.
Yeah.
And these racing thoughts are the common theme that we hear from everyone. So everything is about sleep at Headspace right now. Not only because we have a sleep show on Netflix, but also because we have new sleep content. Obviously, we've got our Sleepcast, we've got the sleep course, which is something that you do away from bedtime.
Okay.
Like a 14-day sleep course that helps you sleep better at night. The sleep music, the sleep sounds, like there's so much, and it's just been a really interesting deep dive for us as a business, and it's really connected us as a business. And again, the Netflix show helped that time out really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sleep is everything in so many ways.
Yeah,
so
right.
I would say, if people really want to sleep well, you could get some toddlers. And I will tell you, I have no trouble sleeping. I could sleep for years. That's the surefire way to get that done. But I'm sure if you don't want to be that committed, I think probably a Sleepcast would probably help you.
I'll sort you out in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. That's very cool. And I noticed too that you guys pre-COVID stuff had started doing a lot of really interesting events too. And I personally am really hopeful that you guys get back to that when it's appropriate, because I want to play with those, with their half helium, half oxygen balloons that you guys had.
Do.
Oh my goodness. Those looked so, and just to have floating bubbles in the air, it looks like a playground paradise.
It was so great. So that was the launch of Healthy Happy America. And we did it in Pittsburgh, and we did a takeover of Shenley Plaza for the weekend with this 5-segment inflatable craziness.
So cool. Yeah.
And then the piece you're talking about was the play zone, which had these kind of magical mid-air balloons. So there was there was all sorts of different zones basically, and that was the play zone in the middle. And everyone just stopped in there because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. And it was And I guess we'd assumed kids would stay in there, but we had old age pensioners, we had businessmen, we had everyone in between, just completely obsessed with these weird floating balloons. But yeah, that live event was it was a big commitment from the business, and we were doing one a quarter. But the second one was in Chicago in March, and it never happened. But we're ready to go. We learned loads. We had such a great response from the local community. It was just a brilliant experience for the team. We had Andy and Eve there. And so, yeah, we're ready to go. We've got the crazy inflatable pod ready to go when we're all allowed out again. Yeah, it was such a valuable experience for us.
It looked really cool. I would love if you guys would do a retreat. That's my personal pitch is if you could do a Headspace retreat, I would be on that in 5 seconds. I think it'd be so fun.
Well, we do a new joiners retreat. So every kind of batch of let's say 40 new joiners, they go off on a retreat with Rich and Andy for a day. And if we can package that up and make that available to super members or fans or whatever, it's a lovely experience.
Oh my goodness. That's I would say that is the best way to recruit top people, right? Employees, you get to go on this sort of journey with, wow.
Oh my God. With Andy and Rich, it's just so special. I'm thinking about it now, and so much that I learned, not only about Headspace, but about myself and my meditation practice just in that one day. It was amazing.
Wow. That's incredible. It sounds fun. Maybe I'll be applying soon. So, well, thinking about your time there at Headspace so far, what's the piece of work that you are the proudest of?
Well, I think, this time last year or March last year, when COVID hit, we did a couple of things that for me were Headspace and myself as our absolute best. So within 48 hours of shutting the office, we launched Weathering the Storm, which was this free content available to everyone around the world to help them deal with what was happening. And then within a few weeks, we launched the Headspace Promise, which is to help those who need us most. And at the time of launch, that was the 40 million unemployed people in America. So we made Headspace free, a year's subscription free to anyone who'd found themselves without a job through COVID. And then we extended that out as well. So I think it's really the behavioral things that Headspace commits to, that then I'm lucky enough to bring to life and communicate out to the world. Free for the NHS, free for the frontline workers, you know, big moments like that, free for educators, where we are so clear in how we can help people that we're willing to give it to them for free, because we know it can transform the way that they feel, the way that they sleep, or the way that they teach.
Absolutely. I mean, talk about putting your money where your mouth is. That's pretty exceptional behavior for a brand. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys have to go and do your thing, and you have to make money to continue to support stuff. But to have such a big impact on people at such an important, pivotal time in their life is, you know, it speaks volumes about Headspace and their mission. So very, very cool. Very cool.
I'm very lucky.
Yes. Yeah. I would say it sounds like a pretty interesting spot. Well, you know, I know we're getting a little short on time here, but I always like to ask people since we are in the world of influencer marketing, and it does touch everyone, is there one influencer, doesn't have to be in the wellness space, but like who's influenced you in a big way, or maybe just a funny way, that you could share?
Do you know, I have one who just brightens up my day at the moment. And it's a funny story, because I should know her in real life, because she's friends of a friend, and she's married to someone I used to work with, but we'd never met. And then I found her on Instagram she's a sex toy ambassador. And then I'm like, hang on a minute, that's Louisa. And it's her handle is Lou in Luland. One of her catchphrases is, I'm a rare fucking sunshine. She's 50 AF. She's just this incredible force of nature. I mean, I guess by trade she's a stylist, but she's not. She's like from another planet. She's absolutely amazing. She's super funny, super positive, incredibly fit and strong, great mom, great wife, great friend. And just her attitude, it just explodes through the screen every single day. So yeah, Lou in Luland is the one for me. She's the one for me.
I love it. I think I'm gonna have to give her a follow. That sounds right.
Oh, you totally are. She is, you know, she's something else.
That's awesome. Well, you know, it's good to hear that people are impacting others in positive ways, right? I think that's sort of been the theme throughout our conversation here. But Caroline, it's wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. And you know, you are welcome back here anytime.
Oh, thank you, Jess. It's an honor. And I'm, as I say, I'm very lucky. I'm so proud to talk about Headspace and everything we're doing. And as things unfold throughout the year, it'd be great to come on and talk about it a bit more.
Absolutely. Thanks.